Hey guys, what's up? It's Samantha, and today I'm coming at you with a plan with me and a reading wrap-up for the week of July 27th through August 2nd. I actually read 4 books this week, and I'm excited to talk about most of them, so that'll be fun. Real quick here, though, I did use this older SPC kit. I think I've had this for 3 or more years. It's a very old format kit. And I kept changing what week I was going to use it and never used it, but finally getting to it now. It's definitely not my usual cup of tea. It's very, very pink, but occasionally I do a whole pink spread, if that makes sense, and it worked really beautifully with a lot of my Papershire stickers that I have. It just works with the peachy pink colors in her stickers, so love how that turned out. But I'm going to go ahead and jump into the books that I read this week. The first book that I read was Axiom's End by Lindsay Ellis. I had an arc of this, and because I love Lindsay Ellis, I actually pre-ordered a hardcover copy of the book, which I regret because I did not like this book and I felt really bad about it. It wasn't a terrible book. I honestly don't even know how to review it other than I was so ambivalent about everything that was happening the entire time. I got done with the book and all I could ask was, what was the point? I can't figure out what the point of that book was supposed to be. I didn't care about the characters. I didn't care about the plot. I wasn't connected to anything that was happening. It just didn't feel successful in terms of the author achieving anything that she set out to do. Not that I could really figure out what she set out to do. It's supposed to be a first contact alien story. It just was weird, and I wasn't a huge fan. It took me forever to get through it, so I ended up giving it a 2 out of 5. Again, it wasn't horrible. There wasn't anything about it that was, egregious in the writing or anything that I could really rant about. I just felt so ambivalent and bored. So then the next book I read was also an advanced copy, which was A Rogue of One's Own by Evie Dunmore, and I gave this a 5 out of 5 stars. I liked this even more than Bringing Down the Duke, which I didn't think was possible for me with a historical romance. This is a Victorian era historical romance, and a lot of people call this Regency. It's not. It's during Queen Victoria's reign. I think people just don't know the different eras of British history. So this has scandal, suffragettes, steamy romance. We follow Lucy, who's a suffragette leader who refuses to marry and be considered her husband's property. Also, anything she owns would become her husband's when she gets married. So she is determined to stay single and not marry. That way she can retain her own agency. And then Tristan is the classic rogue. He's recently returned from war in Afghanistan, and he fills his days with writing and his nights with scandalous liaisons. He's, typical rogue stuff going on. And they end up working together. There's a whole thing with a printing press that Lucy wants to buy, and Tristan becomes involved as well, and they're both shareholders in it, and the banter between these two is just top notch, and watching them open up to each other and learn about the other person, but also learn about themselves was really beautiful, and I think that's what I liked about this so much, is just the self-discovery that happens and the character arcs, both like their relationship together, but them as individuals, was really, really awesome. And I enjoyed it so much. It was really, really good. Like I said, I liked it even better than Bringing Down the Duke. And we do get to see the girl from Bringing Down the Duke. I'm blanking on what her name was, maybe Clara or something. It's been a while since I've read it, and I'm terrible at remembering names, but I can't recommend this enough. If you like romance, give this a try. I normally don't love historical romance, but this series seems to be the exception for me. Then the next book I read was Sandman Volume 1, which was a graphic novel. I gave this a 4 out of 5 stars, and then I checked out all of the other books in the series, and almost immediately after, and it's been 3 months now, and I haven't touched a single other book in the series, so I don't really know if I could still say it's a 4 out of 5 star read for me. I never really felt compelled after I initially finished reading it. I never felt compelled to continue with the books. So maybe it was more like a 3.5. This is definitely a dark fantasy graphic novel. The art style isn't really for me, but I really did enjoy the story. And I also have the Audible exclusive quote, like audiobook adaptation that they did of this. It's more like a radio play. There's a word for that, and I'm blanking on what it's called, but I have listened to part of that, and that's what made me pick up the graphic novel, because I realized a lot of it didn't make sense without having read the graphic novel before. You needed that to sort of anchor yourself while listening to the story, but I liked it. It was dark. It was a little spooky, very much if you like Neil Gaiman type stories. This is written by Neil Gaiman. I liked it. I hope at some point to go back and read the other volumes of this. I would probably need to reread the first one, but I liked it. It also could be that I'm not really in the mood to read super dark stuff right now, or haven't been for the past few months, but I don't know that more comic book style graphic novels are really my favorite. And this is, since it's done by DC, it is illustrated more like a comic book and less like the kind of graphic novels I tend to pick up. And I really like beautiful artwork as part of a graphic novel experience. So I think that might be why, once I came off of like the high of how good the story was, I wasn't so excited to pick up other volumes. Does that make sense? I don't know if that makes sense. It's kind of a contradiction. So then the last book I read, I really, really enjoyed. And this was a book that kind of broke me out of a reading slump. It took me forever to read Axiom's End. And if you watched my last couple videos, I have not read a ton the previous couple weeks. This book I read in under 24 hours. It was The Year of the Witching by Alexis Henderson, and I gave this a 4 out of 5 stars, but it's a very strong 4 out of 5 stars. It was super atmospheric, it was creepy, and it was filled with feminist commentary that wasn't didactic, and it didn't beat me over the head with its messaging. It definitely made you think about what was going on. You weren't spoon-fed a message, and I've talked about this in some other books in recent reading wrap-ups where I was frustrated with how I felt like I was being spoon-fed by the author. This does not do that at all. I did feel a little let down by the ending, but I will say the first time I read the ending or listened to it, because I got the audiobook from my library, the ending, I was just confused, and I ended up going back and listening to it again, and then listening to it again, because I felt like I missed something. But I think that the ending just wasn't quite as strong as the rest of the book, so it would have been a 5-star up until the last, I think, 2 or 3 chapters. It fell a little flat for me, but it definitely left me thinking for a long time afterwards. And I particularly enjoyed what the author did with biblical references and imagery in this book. This takes place in a very conservative kind of Salem meets Handmaid's Tale, patriarchal society. And the main character's name is Emmanuel, which should automatically trigger your, biblical reference thing there. And Emmanuel is a shepherdess, which again, like how Jesus was was referred to as like the good shepherd and stuff. And there's a lot of, I don't want to get into spoilers and stuff, but there's a lot of imagery and allusion to biblical things that just made this so good on a literary level, and I really appreciated how the author wove that kind of stuff into the narrative, and I just really appreciated the writing so much in this, and I like have a huge smile on my face right now even talking about this book. This book was just so good, and I'm a big baby. I don't like scary books. I mean, I like things that are spooky and atmospheric, but I don't like horror kind of books, and I would say this is a horror fantasy, but it's horror more in a dark, spooky, atmospheric sense and not in a I'm gonna have nightmares for weeks about this book kind of sense. So I was able to read it and not be totally freaked out by it, if that provides any kind of reference for you guys, or, you know, whatever. I just can't recommend this book highly enough. Even though I only gave it a 4 out of 5 stars, it still was one of the most enjoyable reading experiences I've had all year, and I can't wait to read more from this author. I think this was her debut novel, and very excited about that. So real quick, this week was a literal and figurative pain. I developed nerve pain and numbness, which I think is related to, we believe it's related to the lupus, some nervous system involvement, or maybe my joints were so swollen that it was compressing nerves, but my arms from my shoulders all the way down my fingers were completely numb and just having shooting nerve pain. And it was very unpleasant, like that tingling, like when your arm falls asleep and then it just starts to get feeling again, like that prickling for the entire week, basically. And it was not a good time. I did not enjoy it. I didn't work really at all this week. I think I worked on Monday and part of the day Tuesday, and then Thursday I tried to go into work, and just driving to work, like holding the steering wheel, my arms went numb, which is like not good if you're on the highway and you can't feel your arms, which freaked me out. And then I ended up going to the doctor, and we played around with my medications a little bit, and after a few weeks, the numbness and nerve pain pretty much subsided. My limbs still go numb way faster than they used to, like if I'm sitting in a weird position or something. So I've been more cognizant of that, but even that has been slowly getting better over the past few months. But this was just a really crappy week in terms of how I was feeling, and not a good time. The whole month of August sucked in terms of lupus stuff, but like I mentioned in my last video, I ended up going part-time starting in September, and that has helped a lot, just having more time to rest and not, running around like a crazy person at work, not being so stressed out all the time. And I also wanted to mention really quickly that I pulled in a ton of Clever Gal Craft stuff. I feel like I forget about how much Clever Gal Craft stuff I have between the bows and the hearts. I tend to forget to reach for them, and I pulled in a ton for this spread, and I love how it turned out. This was very shiny, very pink, which normally pink isn't what I go for, but I do really love how this turned out. I think just all of that gold foil in there, just very, very pretty. So thank you guys so much for watching this spread, and I will have all of the shops I used as well as the books I mentioned linked down below, and I will talk to you in my next one. Bye, guys.